Hello, all you lovely folk from the internet. Come on in. Come join the NerdChat. So, when we last left off, we were talking about an adventure from the early days of Hal Jordan and Barry Allen as Green Lantern and Flash when they teamed up to fight some shadow creature that seemed to be possessing people and making them commit dastardly acts and then seeming to make them cowardly after. So, where we left our heroes, they ran through the creature since they didn't seem to be able to do any damage to it. And on the other side of the creature, our heroes ran through the shadow and they found themselves on an alien world. Barry says he'll just follow the evil brick road up to the ominous tower and pick them up a map from the visitor's center, but Hal stops him. Hal explains to Barry that there are procedures to landing on a strange world and possible contact with new life. They need to they need to do these, procedures anytime a Green Lantern lands on a new planet in order to stay on the good graces of the Guardians of the Universe. So, first things first is sealing their metabolisms. So that's the aura shield that you see around them, making sure they can't swap diseases with anyone on the planet. Then they do a sensor sweep and, do all the works. But at that point, they are grabbed by a bubble, and someone telepathically says to them, there is no escaping the Constrictor. So the Constrictor brings them to a lab where some spooky scientist tells them that he is Science Minister Sarar, and all he wants is Earth's evil. So his race is currently being invaded, but there are placid people who cannot match the invaders' aggression. So he released the Shadow Plague to capture humanity's evil. Sadly, the creatures cannot separate from their hosts without killing them. Flash says that he sounds pretty evil to them, and Sarar thanks him for saying such, but he can be so much more. So he needs to capture their aggression, and because Green Lantern asks, why not just leech the evil from the invaders? And Sarar says that he tried, but they have unbelievable defenses. But after all, there is an old interplanetary adage: acquire food from a farmer, work from a slave, and corruption from a human. And he laughs maniacally. So Hal and Barry trying to find a way out of the Constrictor, and Flash can't vibrate through, and GL can't find a weak spot. Using Hal's ring, Barry's able to take a microscopic look at the molecular structure of this thing, and in order to vibrate through something, he needs to slip through the gaps of molecules, but the reason why you can't get through this is that this has no gaps in between the molecules. But apparently Hal's ring can manipulate the molecular structure of it, and they're able to vibrate through, and they proceed to destroy the lab and show him some of that good old humanity aggression. So the two race back to the portal. Green Lantern, he fights the shadow as he comes through, and he hits it with a nova burst of light, which makes it vanish. Flash holds Boonstrom, the pilot, asking what flight he was on that this all started on. So as Boonstrom passes out, Barry rushes him to the hospital and tells Hal to meet him back at the airport. Hal goes to recharge his ring and thinks on the irony of his oath as he's currently trying to protect Earth's evil. So the two catch up, and Barry has all the contact information of all the passengers on the flight. They move across the city, and they continue to fight the Shadow Plague. They go from person to person who is a carrier of this plague in order to wipe it out. Once they finish, Hal tells Barry he's really glad that he came to town, because if this case went on for 1 minute later, he'd be scared of his own shadow, and as then we see that their own shadows start to attack. The shadows quickly overwhelm the real Flash and Green Lantern. Hal tries the same trick as before, but it doesn't work since all of his aggression is gone. Barry runs them both out of the city. He just doesn't know what to do. He has lost his complete will to fight. He doesn't want to hurt them. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. And Hal can't find the willpower to, fight back either. But Barry tells Hal that if those shadows hurt anyone, it's their responsibility. It's on them. And Hal says, keep talking like that as the shadows approach, because otherwise he doesn't see them making it out of this. He can't, muster up any reason to fight, but Barry's words and the inspiration of that seems to be giving him enough to try to work with. So Barry notices the shadows don't seem to work very well together, and Hal gets an idea, but needs Barry to help him find the motivation. So Barry says that there is this quote: in order for evil to triumph, it is only necessary for good men to do nothing. Hal says, yeah, I think I like that. And he creates his own Constrictor, knowing the shadows won't be able to work together to get out. And So the Constrictor is able to finally constrict them and, obliterate the shadow creatures, and then they realize that they have their shadows back. But Hal wants to check to make sure that these shadows are tamed, so he makes a little bunny rabbit shadow puppet, and everything seems to be fine. So the two wrap things up, they go back to Ferris Air, and GL tells Flash that he'll tell the Guardians about Sarar, and if he even squints at a globe of Earth, they'll handle it. And they talk about how good of a team they made, and no matter what, even if the League were to break up, they'll always still have each other's backs. But Barry asks, hey, can we go get seafood? I've been, I'm starving. I've been thinking of it ever since we got here, since they're on Coast City. And Hal says, go ahead. If he's that hungry, he'll catch up in a bit. He has to put in the paperwork. And Barry asks, Green Lanterns do paperwork? And Hal, as he's communicating with the Guardian through a lantern, says, in a manner of speaking. So there's also this one-page epilogue at the end of it, which is kind of just a nice little thing. So Barry is having like a nice night in with Iris, and Hal's talking to a friend of his, and they're each asking, Hal and Barry about like the trip and what was like, and Barry mentions like, oh, Hal's so cool, like it was really neat to see him, like, being the light of the party, and everyone wanted to talk to him. And Iris is like, what were you doing? He's like, oh, I was people watching. She's like, yeah, that's Barry speak for wondering or for daydreaming about being literally anywhere else. And then likewise, Hal, it's like, why would you want to hang out with Barry? He sounds like he would spend his whole night in, reading like 6 textbooks. And they each ask, like, so what is it that you see in them? Because they seem so different. And both of them say, I honestly don't know. And that's the end of this. There's more in this collection that I'm going to cover a few more of. The next one, we actually get to see Wally West meeting Green Lantern for the first time, which is really cool. But yeah, it's a nice little just side story about what it's like for Barry and Hal to be friends, since they're such an iconic duo. And it's I really enjoyed it, and I really like this is a nice warm-up, but the other ones are really cool. Another one, they actually also team up with the Golden Age, the Flash and Green Lantern, so they meet up with Alan Scott and Jay Garrick, and they go on like this trip together, and that one's, I'm looking forward to get that one too. So if either of the upcoming ones sound interesting to you, feel free to subscribe and check it out. But yeah, they'll all be out, I do these videos every Wednesday, and more will be coming, so just subscribe, press the button. I also do streaming here if any of that is interesting to you. So I'll stream, games like Warzone or Minecraft or Among Us, I'm just kind of rambling on at this point. I don't really know what else I wanted to talk about. So if you are interested in any of that, feel free to stick around, subscribe, press the button like I said. Make sure you get notifications for when I do streaming or anything like that if you're interested. Or if you want some more team-up comics like this, I have a few more that I covered. I'll put up their playlists right now. And otherwise, yeah, just stay tuned until the next one, especially if you want to see Kid Flash get a lantern ring. So I'll leave that little teaser for you, and I'll thank you all for coming. I'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.